sort of the high-level, broad perspective, I think that the main benefit of whiteboards for educators in their classroom is really, to get collaboration, to bring collaboration to a new level, to get the kids to work together and not only be sort of taught at, but to interact with the material, to interact with the media and the things that the teachers are using to teach them, and to interact with one another as a class, and also, to collaborate with the teacher on the projects that they're working on.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And Mark, what do you think?
No, I think that's absolutely the essence of what we think as well, a collaborative classroom. That's what education is about, that's what classroom's about. It's a social space, and the board's a social tool, not just a presentation tool. I think the problem that you described stems from a couple of issues. One is that there was probably in those schools, whiteboards been around since 1991 or so. I think they've exploded interest recently because people are coming to some understanding of how they should be used. But I think in the past they were used, people took the skills they had with PowerPoint or with other presentational simulations and just presented them. They might as well have a projector. But I think, as people get trained and get the professional development they need in using the boards, I think that problem isn't seen. But yeah, we should constantly be challenging that. If the board isn't being used, then it's a wasted investment. I think that goes for any technology.
You bring up a good point, and it's to talk about professional development. And I like the idea that you're talking that way, because really, if a teacher has a technology, has no clue how to use it to its fullest capacity, then it just be used the same way they've always used it. I can even see this as being something that could happen at a pre-service level, a university level as well. Would you like to speak to that? Chris, could be anybody.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I think that I think that Mark's got it right. That we have to train not only the teachers that have been doing this for 30 years, but as you say, Ken, we need to train the teachers that haven't been doing it yet, that are still at the university level, on how to use this and any technology really. I mean, as Mark touched on before, if the technology is not being used to its potential, then it really is a waste of an investment for the school and the district, which, as we all know right now, is not something that schools can afford to do. They have to be not only trained on how to use the technology, but I think that we also need to remember that educators need to be given the tools to determine what are some new ways to use the technology, not just the potential that is inherent in the hardware itself, but how can they adapt that hardware to their own circumstance and the capabilities of that hardware to bring a more robust collaborative experience to their individual classroom.
Great. And Mark, you probably can speak better to the software that's available at this point, because when those whiteboards first came out and those solutions just first came out, the software was really not designed the way it is today for that sort of thing to happen.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that they have to grow. I mean, I'm an educator by profession and moved into educational technology later on in my life. And I think if you look at the software that is supplied with the interactive whiteboards, the active board, you kind of realise what the thinking is behind it. It's very little about presentation. It's very much around manipulation and organisation, about thoughts and ideas, virtual manipulative theories, writing and drawing, and things like that. And I think one of the challenges, come back to the point about college, is if you haven't experienced that, either in the way you've been taught or in the way that you grew up and went through school, then you're going to carry on and do the old things. You know, I like to think of the board as the digital group space, and I think when that idea comes through, the tools make much more sense. I mean, if a teacher's preparing everything and presenting it, and then you've got a handheld responder system like we have connected to our board called Active Expression or both, the teacher's stuck on a rail trying to deliver what they planned. And really it shouldn't be like that. If it's a collaborative classroom, if there's communication and feedback coming from the students, the board is constantly changing. That's what the software is all about, you know, moving things around, writing notes, moving on, going back to a note, getting some feedback, getting the kids to contribute some words, maybe going to all the things they've put on the network and reviewing, you know, with their peers, student work on blogs or wikis or things like that. It's a very powerful tool, but it all comes down to professional development. The teacher has to know how to wield it well.
So it's actually training teachers how to use a different tool to do what they already know how to do, which is teach, is what you're saying.
And just to that point, I mean, we just conducted some early research with Dr. Robert Marzano, and he's been looking at this, the nature of interactive whiteboards and what makes them effective. I mean, he's come with some stunning findings, but you can find those out online. But I think what he was finding, the sweet spot is an experienced teacher, experienced a number of strategies, who's been well trained in the technology, who can then reflect on their existing skills and reapply them in new ways with the technology. And that's where the impacts come. The technology itself isn't the magic bullet. It's the training and the professional development. And I think that's coming through the research now. And I think that's great because we invest in that. We've got a big community of users, and I think that's what's going to make the difference. The features of the software are great, but the practitioner network around it is equally, if not more important.
So, Chris, that could actually, what Mark just said, can actually apply to any hardware, any software.
Right.
And if you had to, Chris, get someone started to look at the various possibilities that you mentioned earlier on, what might you tell administrators, teachers, educators around the world that they might want to try in order to do that?
I think, as goes with anything, really what educators need to think about doing is just getting their hands dirty with the technology itself. I think that what's really important today in classrooms and just in general is aggregation of information. So I think that the whiteboard is an excellent tool to use to aggregate and then manipulate the media that the teachers, the information that educators are trying to get across to their kids. So, they really need to explore the technology itself. But one way that they can do that is see how that technology can help them aggregate their information in an efficient way and use it to enhance the classroom experience.
Right. So how about a final word, gentlemen, from each of you. Mark, a final word on this?
Yeah, I mean, there was some good points in the last thing Chris said there about the information. It comes down to modelling. I mean, if there's one thing that's changed in the last through a few years with information technology and the internet, it's not so much different information, it's just vast masses of other information, extraneous information. You've got to filter through it. And actually that's a basic literacy skill. And I think that's where teachers should be using the board, is to take what they already know. We shouldn't believe the kind of myth of the digital native that they naturally know how to use Google. They need to be taught how to pick a keyword and how to pick out the salient points within everything they read. It's more complicated now. I think the need for the teachers to be digital teachers is absolutely critical. So, this is just one tool in a number of other technologies that need to combine together. The network, the student computing, the web-based tools that teachers are innovating with.
Right.
It's all part of the toolkit now. You shouldn't think of just whiteboards themselves. Yes, if you took it by itself without the rest, it would have some value, but probably nowhere near as much as you're going to get when you combine it with the other range of technologies available now and let the teacher moderate and manage it.
Right. Chris, a final word?
Right. No, I definitely agree. I think that the benefit of any technology that's out there, whiteboards included, is not just the inherent use of that isolated piece of technology in a vacuum, but the value of it is how easily and how effectively can it be integrated with other technologies. And I think just speaking of whiteboards specifically, I think that the whiteboard is a great gathering place where you can bring other technologies into that and use them all in unison to teach the things that Mark was talking about. And one of the most important things is using it to teach how to separate signal from noise, because there is an awful lot of noise out there.
Right.
And kids do need to be taught. They need to be taught, how do I differentiate between what's important and what is just out there. And I think that the whiteboard provides a pretty decent platform to be able to do that.